Or the active contact.
Any contact with them. So we'll talk 18th, but it'll be late afternoon on the 18th, is what you said.
All right, it is 10 o'clock. We will bring this Board of County Commissioners special meeting agenda to order. Please join me in the pledge.
Flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item is the agenda approval.
Commissioners, I have no change to the agenda as presented. Oh, wait. The Public Works meeting is probably going to move up to 11:30 noonish once we finish with DHS, Lester, and Chris have a concrete truck coming at around 12:30 to work on our have a great project.
Are you going to move them all forward, or will emergency management stay at 2?
I'll stay at 2.
Thank you.
So how does that look in motion?
It's more FYI.
Okay. We'll make a motion to approve the agenda. I'll second that.
A motion is second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Commissioner Wood,
Yes.
Commissioner Wood,
Yes.
Chairman Brown.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you. All right. Moving on to appointments.
All right, Commissioners, give me 1 second to get this up. It's been lots of us to need to share my screen for that. So, Commissioners, it's my pleasure to introduce your preliminary fiscal year 2025 budget. This is my first shot at the budget, and we'll go through some of the anticipated timeline and an overview of the process and whatever committed to you and why. But over the next couple of weeks, we're going to get into we're going to have a series of meetings with all the department heads and elected officials to discuss the budgets. And this is very much a living document. Nothing in here is baked. Some things were excluded potentially, something included accidentally. So it's a document that we can work from, based from, not necessarily a cooked thing that we're trying to remold and reshape. So today I present to you the proposed budget. A hard copy will be available in the Board of County Commissioner's office, and it'll be posted online as well. It'll also be in the newspaper. I usually run the newspaper twice, so I've already sent that notice into Eric. We'll run this Thursday, and then we'll run in a couple of weeks right before the hearing. So on the 29th, we'll have the majority of our meetings with the individual departments and agencies. November 12th, we'll meet with the DA's office and the health department. And the 19th is basically a backup day for departments that can't meet on the 29th. Some departments, for instance, clerk recorder's office, will likely be too busy on the 29th to meet with us, so we'll push that one back. On the 12th, we'll conduct our public hearing, our official public hearing. Note that members of the public can come for any commissioners meeting after this to comment on the budget, but we still like to have an official public hearing. Just wanted to make sure we comply with statute and to so hopefully try to organize comments a little bit. I have on here the budget workshop to make final decisions on the 26th. We'll likely relocate that time. Probably push it back to that next Tuesday in December. but we'll probably have a conversation after each of these sessions about what we want to do to each budget so that that can run relatively smoothly. And my goal is to finish the budget on December 10th during the regular meeting and not during a special meeting on the 15th. So strategic priorities we identified in this budget, this was in the memo to department heads, elected officials, and outside agencies, talent acquisition and retention, infrastructure and facilities, economic development, and public safety. As a reminder, we have fund balance requirements for certain funds. Any fund that has employee salaries budgeted in there cannot go lower than 10% of their operating expenditures. And we also have a target of 25% of budget operating expenditures in the general fund, which that is a long-term goal, not a short-term goal. I have on here the table reserves budget at 300. It should be 350. I missed out on this slide, but I corrected it in the future in subsequent slides. So we made a couple of structural changes to this budget. One, we discontinued the use of the other admin cost center or financial department. All those costs are distributed amongst various departments in the general fund now. So unemployment and workman's comp, for instance, are attributed to each department in the general fund versus all being there together. Some costs are just in one department. Right now, I've moved all the property insurance into public works. The treasurer's clearing account which is a money in, money out account. It balances itself, but I put that into the treasurer cost center at the moment. And there's other little changes like that have happened as well. But it is moving around a good deal of money. Each department also now has we also now have two professional services line items. There's the standard professional service line item, and there's one for professional services attorney. I think I adjusted everyone so that the professional services attorney includes money for the attorney when they want money for the attorney, but it's possible I left it in the other one. That's one of the things we're going to have to clean up as we get to the final budget. We also created an internal services fund for IT expenses. So now we're going to centralize the purchase of ink, paper, printers, computers, postage. All that will be centralized in one fund and then build out to the various departments in different ways. So printers and computers will be built out through an annual fee. And based on the amount of ink and amount of maintenance that one of those printers uses, for instance, or computer uses, that fee will be raised up or raised down. That is partly to incentivize departments to get the printers that take cheaper ink. For instance, the EcoTake printers, those a whole lot cheaper to run than inkjet. Copiers will move to that cost center. Right now, they are another admin for the most part. They'll move to this new internal services fund, and departments will get billed for individual usage. So per page, color, per page, black and white. And we've done a rough estimate of this, but that's something else we're going to have to fine tune as we get towards the final budget. And this first year is going to be a little rough until we have really the system set up the correct way, or set it all, I should say. Because right now, people just print freely. So that'll be a decent amount of change. The bulk purchase of paper should save us a good amount of money. We start buying paper by the pallet instead of by the case. The price drops a couple of cents a page. It's enough for I think it'll make a difference on the whole, and hopefully help to pay for other things that the county might need. The goal with this fund is also make sure that departments can have computers particularly replaced on a regular schedule. A lot of departments, particularly downstairs, have antiquated computers that parts should have been replaced a long time ago, but the department heads, it was sort of left onto them without the money in their budget to do it, not necessarily consistently, and without sort of the advice that they need. You know, if they look at a computer, think about it, and grab IT and say, wait, these computers need to be replaced. Does IT get to it? Do they get it done? Is it there's no schedule. So having this center on IT and IT being able to say, all right, these computers need to be replaced every 3, 4, 5 years, whatever the part schedule is, means that we can keep up. It also means that department head, if a computer goes down randomly, doesn't have to deal with, I have to spend $1,200 I wasn't planning on spending that. So all those things I think will generate some efficiency and help the county operate better and hopefully save some money. The budget does include a 2% cost of living increase for all employees. The decision to switch to health insurance allowed the county to avoid a 9% increase in next year. I think we're also going to see some additional savings, switching from the 3-tier system, employee plus one, employee plus family, to the 4-tier employee plus one, employee plus children, employee plus family. We'll figure that out in open enrollment. Right now, the budget is based on the 3-tier system because that's what the information that we have. So that'll be some big adjustments when we get into that part of the budget. The other reality that we have to be prepared for is that because of the amount of the savings, employees might choose to do different things with their health insurance, like adding back on that we took off before, things like that. So that's also something to remember. The sheriff's office, of course, ended the contracted service with the city of Walsenburg. That has a major impact of our budget, taking out about $860K revenue. I haven't reduced the sheriff's office budget that much, mainly because I thought it was irresponsible. But nevertheless, we do have an issue where we need to, something has to give somewhere. So that's one of the discussions that I'm going to have to do this over the next couple of months and into next year, is how we structure the general fund, because there are some issues here that remain, some structural issues in the general fund. Our revenues for property tax have remained relatively flat over the last couple of years. Depending on what the assessed valuation ends up being next year, either will drop or will probably remain flat again. The marijuana revenue dropped considerably once New Mexico legalized. Was that a huge chunk of our budget? I mean, nowhere near what the money that Trinidad has lost, or anything like that, but it's enough to make an impact. And right now, what it feels like is that it's sporadic. So last year in 2023, we got in like 100,000 more than what I was expecting, and so I budgeted for more this year, and we've got in less of. We've got in closer to what I budgeted for in 23. So it does feel sporadic. People are growing, they're not growing randomly or based on the market conditions, which of course constantly in motion. So we do need to keep working on how we stabilize the general fund in the long run. I would say that it's necessarily a problem right now, but it's definitely a concern we need to watch and we need to focus on. Process notes. So our 2023 audit is still underway. Last week, the auditor instructed Kim to make some changes and transfer money that were transfer in fiscal year 2023. So money that was there a month ago is not there anymore. That's reflected in this budget, and I've worked to make the necessary corrections to account for that. Some of that was not transferred intentionally, but so you'll see there are some negative balances in funds that we have to correct for. I expect that changes will continue to happen, but hopefully nothing as big as that going forward. The other thing that we realized was that the 2023 actual numbers in this budget include encumbrances. So include money that wasn't actually spent. So that's an issue that we know about with our system. That's part of the reason why your budget packet includes an Excel spreadsheet, unlike the previous system generated stuff you're used to, because the system was generating with encumbrances and my totals were crazy off. So I had to do it manually, and manually still have some issues, but this is, I think, more accurate than what I've gotten in the system. So, county general fund. The beginning balance for 2025, we expect to be $2,135,623. We have expenditures slightly above, not slightly, expenditures decently above revenues in the 2025 budget. I expect that that's mainly because one, not cutting down the sheriff's office, and two, because of capital projects. I've moved a lot of capital projects out of special projects into the general fund. For instance, the airport project, our total spend on that is something like $35,000 ish, but it's a $700,000 project. So it's going to show a big jump in the general fund expenditures. Two other smaller projects as well. I've eliminated most capital spending except for projects that we're sort of already committed to. Most of them are included in the budget, so we'll have to see if we can put them back in and where we put them back in and how we put them back in. The operational reserve, the combined operational reserve, again, this is a high-level target. The actual amount of that reserve is projected to be $1,676,074. This is, again, a fluctuating target. We're still working on that. And hopefully we're just going to say that target number is 25% of the general fund's total operating expenditures for a year. So we want to be able to have the first 3 months of general fund expenditures just sitting there. We expect to have it sit there. The working capital reserve for general fund is $716,000 approximately. That has been met. Key numbers, the table reserve, I mentioned that I missed on that previous slide, but $350K in table reserve. Debt service in general fund is $810,000. The majority of that, vast majority of that is the judicial center. There are $600,000 in transfers to the general fund, all of which is taken out of emergency services. And I've transferred no money out of the general fund. I don't think in the time I've been administrative, money has been transferred out of the general fund ever. So these are your departments. These departments that report to you for operational purposes, and not just fiscally. And what I've recommended for those departments. Again, you'll see other admin is zeroed out. You'll see that we depreciate the use of economic development last year. Administration, public works all have big jumps as we move money around. Most everything else is pretty much the same. Judicial goes up because that lease purchase on that building goes up every year. So in a few years, I think it's a 6-year period until we can pay it off. At that point, we do need to refinance that. I think it's 6. I want to double check it. I think we're in like year 5 of that, 4 or 5 of that. But we do need to refinance that because it does have a balloon payment at the end of 20 years. So we want to be opportunistic and work with financial advisor eventually on when the right time to do that is to maximize the benefit to the county and figure that out structurally. But just remember that does have a big balloon payment at the end of the loan. I think it's like 1.6 million or something like that. It's big. The clerk recorder's office, their request has decreased a little bit. The amount from estimate this year to recommend next decrease. That's the person the department has had. So insurance sticks with the employees that are there. It's something that I don't allow like extra money to be put in there except for when we have vacancies. So that would be a big fluctuation in departments that are smaller. This includes both elections and the main clerk recorder's office. And you can see most of the change is in her recorder's office versus in elections. Elections went down a little bit because it's an off year, but again, that's a number that tends to oscillate. Budget's up, it budget's down, budget's back up. It's not something that we tend to keep flat, only because of how we do our appropriations. we wipe out the balance every year regardless. So always remember that. That causes problems in some departments, by the way. We'll get back to that another time. For the treasurer's office, there's a slight increase there. Debbie did request we requested a full-time position back. I think I put a part-time position in there for right now, so that we can discuss with her at her meeting. There's a slight increase from her requested to her recommended because of the changes that we made, moving things around out of other admin. Now, that wasn't anticipated by the department that submitted their requests, and I hadn't quite figured out how to make it work. So that's part of why that's happened. The assessor's office, same thing with moving things around. They have a reassessment year coming up, so every other year, countered with the elections almost, their budget goes up and then goes back down. And we'll see with their budget how that reacts with. They're one of the bigger ones that the changes for printing has impacted. So is the treasurer's office, because they don't currently pay part of a lease. They're going to be impacted more, I think, by the changes in how we do the printing costs and the copy costs. The district attorney's office includes a slight increase to $590. That is approximately his personnel request. I felt that important to keep up with that, even though we're no longer under the court order. That case is still pending with the Supreme Court. The 2025 requested number, I thought was a little extreme, personally. But also we lacked the numbers. He did the thing they did last year. So Mitchell, more for you. When the DA sued us, he said he wanted to have a certain ratio of cases per attorney.
Mhm.
Well, he won at the time in trial court. And the first year that I used it, the ratio was not what he thought it was when he calculated out what he said versus cases proposed. So last year and this year, since that happened, he has not given us a number of cases. That number of cases is not independently verifiable by the source.
Do you know what the 2024 budgeted was?
For the DA's office,
Mhm.
that was the sorry, it's not here. That was the 581, 508.
So estimated is the same as budgeted?
Yes, and we give that department gets 100% of what we budget for them. They're the only one that's like that. Things can change for everybody else. The sheriff's office, I think the pretty significant drop in their budget from their 2023 actuals and their budget amounts down to what we recommended. Part of that came out of the jail, part of that came out of the sheriff's office itself. There's most of all of our budgets are personnel, all of them. So to not have that additional revenue come in, there's a question we have to ask about how many officers is the floor. What's the floor number of officers we're going to have? I didn't take, say, a list of names and bleed out their salaries. I did that for illustration. I gave that to Bruce, but in this, I sort of picked a random number, and not a random number, a number that would work. And with that, so it's like an even 700,000, I think, versus trying to say, get rid of this person, get rid of this person, get rid of this person. Mainly because I don't want to have a situation where someone's like, well, you decided to lay me off months ago. That's not how we want that to work. Bruce has to work through what his office needs in his reduced budget. And there's also the opportunity for him to have an agreement with the city for some period of time so that he could ask you guys to float it, to say, let's see what happens here. How long they have to pay us for it, because they might pay us enough to where they can keep their whole staff for the year. Like that number might be something like $400,000 or $500,000. That's without any increases to things like training, fuel, other things like that may not be realistic. So there's some trade-off there that has to work there. The county coroner's office, again, relatively flat. Her estimated is on the low end, I think mainly because her office is always one interesting one to budget for. How many people will die next year, or will die by the end of this year? That drives her cost a lot. But the vehicle that she got from the sheriff's office didn't really work out, so she is switching back to doing mileage rather than using the vehicle. So that's out of her budget. That's been adjusted for.
What happened to the vehicle?
It died
Oh, okay.
at a very inconvenient time in Denver.
Oh,
Yeah.
no pun intended.
I was so quick and took that joke up. The health department, their request did not go up, so I met their full request. We do not pay that full amount. A portion of it comes out of DHS. So that's the reason why I'm confident keeping that amount. I said we don't pay it, the county does pay it, but a portion comes out of DHS. The major funds, in this case, major funds are funds that have multiple departments in them. Road and Bridge, we have finally seen a nice little increase in their HETF, bringing them over 2 million for the first time since 2020, or should I say 2019 into 2020. We've also recreated the Road and Bridge construction. When we do the HETF spending, it's a little bit weird to have the we're supposed to report our construction activities. And like when an auditor is doing it, accountant's doing it, they can go and pull and make this all work. When we're doing it, it's a little more difficult. So the reason why we sort of laid this out that way, that department is apparently listed in the penalties imported over in Avenue. So reactivating it gives me a nice, easy way to track the construction in the fund and report that separately. Technically speaking, we should be doing something different with administration and the commission, but that's an issue for another decade. So an overall slight increase in Road and Bridge's salary, in Road and Bridge's overall cost there. Public Welfare Fund, they have had some fun over the last last week or so with the computer that runs their budgeting software. So this is what they sent me last night. After getting over the initial alarm, I think that this is just an error. Part of what they have to do is translate the budget they do for the state, which is essentially like a grant application in some ways, from that fiscal year, which is like November to October, to a calendar year fiscal year. So there's a whole lot of unknowns and things like that that have to be put into that. A lot of just toss at the wall and guess at it till you already get it right. So between that and between, I think some things might be missing here, is probably why they are lower than anticipated. We'll talk about that a little more with Heather at our 11 o'clock. Emergency services, that fund is in decently good shape. This number in the actual emergency services department, which is over budget dispatch, includes a transfer to the general funds. That's why that's so high. This does not include the 129 Kansas building. I didn't budget that at the moment. I want to see sort of where I can get that capital stack before I do that. This fund's revenue year to year is about 1.2. So there is a little bit higher here than we really want it to be. Some of that's because of the construction and things like that. We've set aside money for buying consoles and other things, but a lot of this is also that fund had a really high balance 4 or 5 years ago, and part of that was the construction, part of that saving for construction, things like that. But after this construction is finished, we're going to have to pare back that budget spending, most of which is again going to impact the general fund. because that's $600,000 transfer, which we've had over the last 2 years. Asset management. This one is a little more fun than most. We were struggling with CIC to get it into the system and be able to use it appropriately, but most of this money is just is us paying leases and things like that, and asset management paying the loans back, things like that. So it's mostly just laying money out. Lease purchase program that we outlined, the Dustin outlined last year, exists in here, but is not budgeted. Needs revenues or expenses. I'll also not budget for the sales of the ranch, mainly because I don't necessarily, if I had a contract, I did what's going to sell for, I'd be comfortable with it, but I haven't done that yet. The transfer to 100 funds at $140K is into special projects. I'll show you why here in a minute. So the minor funds, just speaking, funds that either we don't use anymore and they are still on our books and we have to show them still, or they are funds that only have one revenue, one expense department. This is the first half. Tourism board continues to maintain a decent high balance. Yeah, they say they're going to spend $102,000. I believe when I see it. Most of that's based on advertisements, and there's a. It really depends on what's going on, how we want to spend that, what deals are available, things like that pop up. Are things running right? So we'll find out relatively early next year if they're going to hit that number or not. We'll see how that goes. Special projects, beginning balance is negative. Part of that is because of the 2023 year. That fund still is not rewriting me. If there's funds that have big encumbrances that are affecting the actuals, it is that one. So we expect it to start off negative next year, but we're going to bring in enough revenue. One from back grants. So there's some lag time on grants that we're expecting to come in, or they came in this year. Also to get in. So the ending balance will be a positive 23,000. After this year, there's nothing else budgeted in that fund. There's no other projects in there. So that fund will probably just go sit for a little bit before we start using it again. Retirement is in good shape. I've been worried about that fund in the past, but so far so good. I haven't budgeted anything new in contingency, and the reason why contingency ends for zero is because I budget to spend the entire contingency, so we'll have to redo the budget if we decide to spend that money. I hope we do not need to spend that money. Parks and Recreation, again, with the transfers that the auditor made, there's an extra $150K that, it was at zero here 2 weeks ago, but now it's not. So I have not figured out what to do with that yet, how best to correct that. So I have to come on that one. I imagine it'll end up flowing into the general fund, but we'll see how that goes. The Housing Authority has our housing grant projects in there for budgeted for next year. Some of that will be done this year, of course, but I budget for the entire grant next year. A slight difference in how we used to do things. We used to budget for the entirety of a grant in the current fiscal year and just sort of like treat it like it was going to roll over in the next. I would have said done the opposite and budget for the entire thing in the next fiscal year rather than the current one. That makes a difference as far as what we're really truly expecting to go out versus what actually goes out. So it'll be less going out than we expect versus more going out than we expect. Conservation Trust does have a decently healthy balance. We tend not to spend all of that that we can spend in that fund. But generally speaking, all that has to be spent for parks and recreation related activities and uses. I might recommend to you for the final budget that we pay Public Works for their work maintaining our parks. That's something we can do with the resolution and the right documentation, but I think it's worth considering. PILT. Most of the transfers that went to other funds that left them in such good position came out of PILT. That's why PILT's negative. The payment we should get next year will change that. There are some payments budgeted out of PILT for next year, so there's urgent expenditures And include a few things that we do every year and a couple of transfers, I think. So that'll be something to come back to. Opioids is a new fund. I had budgeted what I believe to be the appropriate beginning balance based on the payments we should have received and should be in that fund. I am not certain that the treasurer has actually transferred all those funds into that fund yet, but we're working on that. The expenditures is a completely random number. I just put something there for now. I'd like to talk to the health department more about what they want to do and how they want to approach things as we work in the future. And if you guys decide you want to do an opioid related grant program or opioid related RFP somehow to see if other nonprofit agencies in the community want to be a part of that, that's a way we can go to. So we just sort of discuss what we want to do about that over the next couple of months. Federal Forest Fund, ending balance is zero, because that is by statute, by federal law. That balance has to be zero at the end of every year, every budget year, or the money goes back to the treasury. Whatever we don't allocate goes back to the treasury at the end of our fiscal year. Internal Services is a new fund. We expect to bring in about 98,000 based on our rough estimate, based on current usage and things like that. Expenditures is a little under 90, and I do want to keep a little bit of ending balance in there. That's my computer crashed money. That's the waste transfer we stopped using this year. We're going to have to make some adjustments there. I think we've done a couple of transactions that we do through there every now and then right to that building. We'll probably end up moving those into the general fund and Public Works. That's to be figured out. Gardner PID is looking healthy. There is some extra capital and extra wants and wishes that Public Works have put in here. That's why their regular expenditures are that high. Our goal is to build that fund back up. I'd like to have that fund have a balance of $100,000. Not that it necessarily needs it, but considering the ways in which things go wrong, like we saw earlier this year, that fund being healthy is a good thing for the county. Disaster recovery is what I do some more work in. That includes our ARPA money. I budgeted $800,000 because I felt like that was the right number, but the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act, money has to be fully obligated by the end of this year and spent by the end of 2026. Most of which I think we're on track to spend either this year or next year. We budget, for instance, the biggest project that's to come out of there is the HVAC for the sheriff's office. That $300,000 is coming out of this fund. So I'll give you an update on that in November as well. And this number will probably be adjusted. And that is your 2020 preliminary budget.
Thank you very much.
Questions, comments, concerns, alarm, panic, anger?
No. Let's go.
I do have some questions. Waste transfer, that, how long was that term of that lease, and is he still interested in moving forward? Have we touched base with him?
Or do we even have the contract?
Well, we have the base contract. We have that amendment we wanted to do.
Right.
That's the one that we haven't heard back on. And that's just something we need to follow up on to get that one moving. Everything's running relatively smoothly. I wish I had some more information to put on the website from them, but and for the general board presence for the district for the waste transfer station, but the complaints I hear are not different. I haven't heard a complaint about cost in several months.
We haven't seen an increase in dumping, right?
No, not from. They were definitely increased at the beginning, and we talked to Ryan and Sherry about what they've seen since then. But I think they're amply prepared to go after them now. I think they've gotten their citation book almost together, so things start to change on that front as well.
Yeah, sure. I haven't heard anything about it. No.
just hopeful that it's working for him and that he's gonna want to continue.
Yeah.
And your conservation trust money would go to the employees or to the department?
It would go to the department, generally speaking. I mean, so versus so wrong. Maybe 75% of Ron's time, if not 90, it's been the community center. Generally speaking, that can all be reimbursed by CTF.
Gotcha. Okay. And then your opioid funds, that's funds in addition to what's going to the health department?
Yes, so that's not their budget allocation. That's, and there's a bunch of different uses for that money. Some of it can go to the jail, some of it can go to law enforcement. It can pay for a lot of different things. I don't have that full list memorized right now, but what we used it for last year / this year was basically education and prevention. The health department trying people not to get on opioids and to, if they are, to use them responsibly, things like that, avoid addiction.
But that money is still going to the health department.
That was only a one-time contract. So we did give them some money this year. That was one that should have been, there was some confusion about the payment last year. So we haven't done anything new with them.
And some of that education goes to the schools.
If I remember correctly, yes. They were working with the schools, they're working with, I want to say CCY, but I don't remember exactly.
Okay. What other questions?
The Parks and Recreation one, it was $0 all year long, but then next year there's like a 139. Is that the match for the grant that we applied for? For the, so I'm trying to find it. I saw it last night. I forgot to write down the page. It was budgeted for 2025. Parks and Recreation, is that just a match for the grant for the lifts?
I think page 12.
Yeah.
No, that grant is not in this budget.
Okay.
In the Parks and Rec line item, you said there's something that 0 then jumps back up.
Page 12 and 25 are the two pages.
Is that the money that was transferred from the
No,
Is it that 153.16 that you're referring to?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the money that was transferred.
yes, thank you.
Okay.
That was the recommendation of the auditor.
Wow.
Any other questions?
I'm here most days going forward. So.
It was very well put together, so thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I know
I
you
appreciate it.
weren't left in the best situation, but you've certainly made the best of it in your time here. So we appreciate you and all your efforts.
Yeah, and I appreciate the team, which is here to talk to us at our next meeting. Because certainly the budget is always fun, but it's a lot easier when you have people that can help you get stuff done.
We have a good team.
All right. Anything else that anyone wants to discuss before we talk about adjourning? So upcoming meetings are, upon adjournment is the administration workshop. And we'll have an 11 a.m. with Board of Human Services, an 11:30, which has changed from the agenda, on Public Works and Park and Recreation workshop, and then 2 o'clock emergency management workshop. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? Call for the vote.
Commissioner Spooner?
Yes.
Commissioner Liddell?
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeff?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Adjourned at 10:43. Thank you.